Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and it is time for a weekend of spooky reading. It is now Friday afternoon. I got off of work a little bit early today because we're going into a 3-day weekend, and I stopped off at the library to pick up a few books. And by a few, I mean a few too many, probably. This is the stack I'm working on. This weekend, Becca from Becca and the Books has a 24-hour readathon for her Patreon, and the prompt for this particular one is to read a ghost story, a haunted house story, something along those lines. There is a lot of room for interpretation here, but it's a prompt that I love, but I didn't immediately have any particular books I needed to prioritize for this. I'm not doing any readathons until September 1st, and that means I don't really have any other prompts that I have to hit. So I went looking through my hardest reading challenge you'll ever do plans and tried to figure out what I could kind of make work, maybe to combine. And I decided to pick up queer horror in particular, with haunting being a theme, but especially trying to hit some of the representations that I haven't picked up yet. Now, this stack is not reasonable to do in 24 hours. I am definitely extending this to be the whole weekend until we get to the 1st. Come September 1st, I'm going to be in full readathon mode. In the meantime, I'm going to kind of read my way through this stack and hopefully have a good chilling time because it is hot here. I probably look pretty not great at the moment. I have a new freezer coming in to my garage tomorrow. I had to do a little bit of last minute figuring out how to open the garage door I never use and things like that when I got home today. And hopefully that will be here tomorrow. And then the rest of the weekend I can kind of chill. I have a live show Sunday, but really I'm planning to sit in front of a fan or an AC for the majority of the weekend. It's going to be a hot one. We got another heat advisory alert today, and I'm not looking forward to the heat. It is supposed to be cooling down like at the end of the 10 to 15 day forecast. There's a little bit of a cooling trend, so I'm hoping that's where we're heading, given that it's nearly September. But I'm not going to give you the full TBR for the weekend. I'll figure it out as I go and let you know what I'm picking up as I get there. But I have started my first book because I needed an audiobook to be reading in the car today. So let me fill you in about that one. So the book that I'm starting with is the one that came into the library the soonest. I actually was able to pick this up during the week. But this is Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. This is by a trans author. It is featuring a trans character named Alice. Alice and her two best friends spent one night in a haunted house. And this is a couple of years back, but ever since then, it broke the relationships. There's a lot of shared trauma between them, and the haunting has continued in her life. This definitely fits the haunted theme. She has a poster on her wall that something is possessing maybe, and the ghost of the character or the person on the poster, it's not their ghost, but the possessing entity is taking on that form and coming out and watching her, and potentially has the ability to physically touch as well. So that's creepy. Whatever happened in the house, we don't have full details at this point in time. I'm about 40% of the way in. We're mainly following Alice. Alice doesn't seem to be enjoying her life very much. She doesn't love the place she lives. She's going places she doesn't love. She's selling her voice and her image on the internet to people she doesn't like. And there's a lot going on in here with her. We also are getting Elia's, I think it is, her former best friend POV a little bit in here as well. And I'm interested to see how that goes because both of them have said things about what the other one did to them in this house. It sounds like the house kind of took control of them and did things that they did not consent to that were violent and inappropriate. I am having mixed feelings about this one so far. I really like the writing, the descriptions, the language is all really enjoyable. It is, however, heavily sexual. It's just not the content that I look for in a horror personally. There are passages in here which are very painful to read about, as they should be, because it's passages putting down Alice or someone like Alice in social media posts for being trans, for being someone that people look down on. So I think it has a lot of good discussions. There are a lot of discussions about what it means to be a woman, to be a trans woman, and about how men treat women and trans women in this sphere. And I distinguish those two because the conversations are very explicitly about women and separately about trans women. I'm not expressing myself well at all. I do get that. But I think the writing is fantastic. It is keeping me gripped. It is having haunting moments. From the synopsis, we know that Ilya is going to ask Alice to return to the house, and I am really looking forward to getting into this setting of the house. We've seen kind of glimpses of it from a distance. We've heard discussion of the house and, you know, the concept of them passing by the house. There is even in here a house POV, not a main one, but we do get to hear from the house as well. And the house kind of has an embodiment. I don't know if it's possessed or if it's just having its own manifested voice. I don't know. I'm having trouble with words, but I'm going to go ahead and go get a nice cold drink, settle in, and hang out with Kylie, play some fetch probably, and finish this one up, and I'll let you know what my final thoughts wind up being. Good morning. It is now Saturday. I had a bit of a rough night. I actually did a lot of reading last night, worked on my crochet. I'm working on this Alice in Wonderland blanket and really having a fantastic time kind of doing it. It's not all coming out perfectly. I'll try to kind of maybe show you some of what I've been working on so far, but I'm really having fun with it. It's new to me kind of techniques involved and creative use of different stitches together to make shapes, and it's been a lot of fun. So that was good. But then for whatever reason, I just did not sleep well last night, and that somehow still transformed into me getting up early this morning. So I'm feeling a little rough, but that's okay because turns out freezer's not getting delivered until late this afternoon, which is not really what I would have said was my ideal, but it means I'm just, you know, staying home, waiting for that all day, relaxing, more crochet, reading, watching some of Becca's sprints, and Kylie's running around in the background, so that's okay. So anyway, to give you some updates. I did finish up Tell Me I'm Worthless, and honestly, if I hadn't been crocheting and reading at the same time, I think I probably would have DNF'd this one. It wasn't for me. I think this one is so heavily focused on trauma and sex being a horror, and by that I mean actually sex and also rape involved, and all of that being kind of a heavy focus of the horror element in here. The kind of haunted house aspect of it kind of gets lost in the background of this, in my opinion. There's a friend who went missing, and that kind of gets a little bit lost in the weeds a little bit. We wind up getting some different POVs and some background on the house, and that's all traumatic, creating kind of this very traumatic place that had this. And it was really hard reading, and not even kind of an ending that made things resolve in a happy way, or for me to feel like this was a relationship that needed saving. I don't know. I'm struggling. I struggled in the intro to this one. It's just a hard book for me to wrap my brain around what to say about it. Again, I think the writing was really well done. There's some really beautiful descriptive passages. There's definitely a lot of strong messages about how poorly people are treated, and the hate, the absolute hate that comes towards someone who is trans. I would not recommend this as a book to go into lightly, because the trauma, the slurs, the just bad language throughout is just really strong. So this did not start me off on the best of notes. I think I'm gonna just go ahead and rate it at a 3 because I think it had some strong elements. My enjoyment level just wasn't there for this one. So with that, I did move on to my next book and went ahead and started that because I felt like I had to spend some time thinking about what I could possibly say about this book. So sorry that this wasn't super coherent. But I do have another update for you. So I decided to go with a book by an author that I know that I've really enjoyed in the past, and that is Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. And they are an author who's written things that I've absolutely loved. So I went into this one with some pretty high hopes. And so far it is going definitely better than book one for me. We are following Vern, who is pregnant and fleeing a commune, one might call it a cult, that she has been a part of. And this is a group of people who kind of separate themselves entirely from white people. And they have some religious beliefs tied to the ideas that the white people's God has rejected them. They don't touch anything made by white people. They keep themselves entirely cut off from the world. And Vern is very young, and she's been given to the kind of leader, or one of the leaders, as a bride. And she is now 7 months pregnant when she runs away from this commune. And she decides she's going to raise her children, because she has twins at the beginning of the book, and keep them away from the world, keep them out in nature and live off the land. She is in some ways a little bit limited. She is albino. She has very poor vision. One of her children has inherited this from her, and they are still living off the land, hunting, gathering, and so forth. But there is someone who is still after them. Her husband isn't just letting her go. And eventually she does realize she has to go out into the world and kind of introduce her children to the world. They've never seen anything other than nature. They were born in nature. They've lived in nature for their first several years. But she needs to fight back against these people who are after her. And this involves getting out into the world and attacking kind of from the outside. She's also going through some sort of physical transformation and trying to figure out what has caused this. And that's an interesting element as well. The haunting part of this, there is a haunting element. It does tie into the theme, although I wouldn't say it necessarily ties particularly well, is she has these visions, and these are things she calls hauntings. And they are visions of people who aren't there, or of, I don't know if they're predictions or just things she is seeing. And in these visions, she can see very clearly where she doesn't in her normal day-to-day life, given her sight issues. So I'm not exactly sure how those are going to tie in. I'm assuming they're somehow tied to this physical transformation where something weird is happening to her body. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and keep reading this one, go get my coffee, settle in, hang out with Kylie, have a relaxing morning, and I will be back once I have finished this, because I am eager to pick it back up. I think the writing's fantastic. I think that Vern's a very interesting character, and I'm really interested to see where this is going. I'm back with better news this time around. But first, I wanted to show you what I've been working on. And this is part of it. This is a little bit of it. You'll probably get some better glimpses. But I finished the 2 stripey pieces that are used to connect some of the kind of applique pieces, I guess you'd call them, including my little bunny butt. Can't say I ever expected to be crocheting a butt, but that's basically what this is. But anyway, I am slowly starting to put things together. I do have 2 more black and white pieces to go. They're more of a checkerboard shape. So anyway, that's what I'm working on currently. And sprints with Becca have started. So I've got about 9 minutes left on the current sprint. And I finished up Sorrowland. And I really did enjoy this one. I don't think it's necessarily my favorite from them, but I think it did a really good job of talking about some real world issues and also the fantastical horrors going on in here. The hauntings definitely become more and more prevalent as the book goes on to fit my haunted reads theme for the weekend. And I liked a lot of the discussion about the characters, about their relationships, and there is a lot of trauma in this one as well. And in thinking about it, what worked for me here that didn't work for me in the first book is, yes, there's a lot of trauma, but also there's joy, there's relationships, there's love, there are things that you can feel those relationships developing. Our main character Vern and her 2 children, there's a huge family bond there, and they're breaking kind of the history of bad parental decisions and bad parental interactions with children. The fact that her mom put her in the position of being in this cult, gave her to this man, and that is something that she's going to have in her background going forward. But at the same time, she can be a good mom. She can make good decisions about what's best for her children and overcome some of her own limitations, like wanting to be entirely independent, but maybe her children need something that she can't provide them and needing to accept that. And I think that was really well done. The kind of resolution of how all of this comes about, the twist to the story or the reveal of what this camp, commune, whatever you want to call it, really is, I think was well developed and not entirely something I saw coming. The kind of idea of who Vern is and what she's becoming, but at the same time she's still herself, is definitely prevalent in here. This will tick off the box on my hardest reading challenge. I've got a puppy at my feet. For an intersex character, Vern is intersex, and that does come out a little bit more later on in the book. It gets talked about a little bit more. It's still not something that's a huge focus of the story, I don't think, but it's there, it's accepted, it's part of her identity. And I think in that sense, I think it is definitely going to work for that prompt. So with that, I had a great time with this book. I think I'm landing on a 4 to a 4.5. There were a few places that felt a little slower. It has kind of a historical feel to it, which is just not my current preference in books. So I think that's part of it. But I think the language was beautiful. I think the plotting was really well done. So I think it's definitely landing 4.5. Let's settle on that. So with that, I am going to need to pick up a new book for the next sprint. When that starts, I've got some groceries ordered, including a lot of ice cream because it is already hot and it's only 11 a.m. And I think it's going to be a day where I just forget about the cost of air conditioning, turn on the air conditioner, hang out, do more crochet. My goal is to at least finish up week 2 for this particular crochet along. I will have the information for it linked down below as well, just if you're curious, but I would like to make a start on week 3 if I can. And I think all of the books that I am contemplating for the weekend, I do have audio for, so that should work out quite well for me and go from there. So anyway, I'll be back once I've started a new book, let you know what I'm reading and how it's going. I'm back. I don't know where today is going. It is after 3 o'clock, just after 3 o'clock. I did get my groceries delivered, so that was good. And I watched Becca's sprints until she finished, and now my friend Nat and Court are doing some sprints. So with that, I am getting a lot of reading in and attempting to keep distractions to a minimum. So far, so good. So I am now halfway into the Grimrose Girls, which is a YA kind of mystery, potentially with maybe a fantastical element to it, but also a horror. It starts with a murder. One of the girls at this academy, the Grimrose Academy, has died. And I shouldn't say murder per se, but obviously there wouldn't be much of a storyline if there wasn't something to investigate. It's assumed to be a suicide. She was found floating in a lake, all on her own. She didn't leave a note or anything, but everyone except for her friends is convinced that this is a suicide. Her friends are sure that it wasn't, and they want answers. There's a new girl who comes to the school, and she gets assigned to the roommates that the deceased girl had, and that's a little off-putting to the friends, but she finds a book, and there's something about this book that seems creepy, that has some sort of a power to it, and she lets them know that this exists. It's something that the girl who died had in her possession before she died, and it raises some questions. It's a book of fairy tales, and those fairy tales begin to kind of link into the mystery. Slowly they begin to realize that this is not the first death among the students of this academy, and that raises even more questions. So this was very slow to start for me. I found it engaging enough, but also slow burn to an extreme where I wanted it to pick up the pace a little bit faster. We do have multiple POVs in here as we switch between the different friends and the new girl and their feelings about what happened and getting to know them and their backstories. So there is somewhat of a need for a little bit of a slow build, but I wish that maybe the fantasy fairy tale elements had been introduced a little bit sooner, because once we've gotten to that, I am much more intrigued by this mystery and how the fairy tales are going to wind up playing into the story a bit more. This has a lot of different representation going on in here. We have an asexual character, which is what I think I'm going to use for the Herkid Rainbow, because I don't have something else in mind for that particular prompt. But of the POV characters, we have the asexual character. We also have 2 who are lesbians on page, and one that I want to say the author said was pan, but I could be remembering that wrong. But that's not really as explicit in the text, but she does talk about her sexuality, and that's where the author has provided some clarifications in the Q&A on Goodreads. So there is a lot of good representation going on in here, I think, and it's definitely suitable for this. There's not so much ghosts or haunting in this one, so in terms of that particular theme, maybe not the biggest link, but the setting is definitely dark academia. There's definitely issues of them being haunted by the past decisions and the past of their friends and so forth. So, you know, close enough. I'll let you know once I get to the end of this one how the rest of it goes, but I am excited to continue on with this. This is book 1 in, I believe, a duology. There's at least a second book out, so if I enjoy this one enough, I could definitely pick up another one in this series as well. It is now Sunday morning. Saturday was a good day, but I was hot. I was miserable by the end of it and didn't want to film a vlog clip last night. So I'm about to actually leave the house, even though I didn't plan to. But now that I have my freezer, which did get delivered finally, it kept getting pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. They wound up not leaving until nearly 6 in the evening. So it was a long day of waiting. But now that I have that, I really want to, put something in it. So I thought, what better time than to go to my bagel shop when I can get there nice and early in the morning and get some nice fresh bagels, enjoy those for breakfast this week, but also freeze a bunch so I have a nice stock for later. So that's my non-reading plan for the morning. And then I do have a live show at noon for the Vampire Academy. We're doing a read along. This is the first session. So if you do have an interest in joining us, there is still time to catch up with us. These books read so fast. And this is being hosted by Sandra at Got a Thing for Things. So that's my plan for noon. And then I do have one video I'm hoping to film today, but other than that, it's going to be a reading type of day. I did wake up with a headache, so that's not helping matters. So I'm not sure how many more books I'm going to necessarily get in because I am wrapping this up today since tomorrow starts off September and all the readathons I am participating in. But all of that to say, I do have some updates for you. First off, I did finish up the Grimrose Girls and I did enjoy this. I think it took too long to get moving, but once we kind of started getting to the deaths kind of ramping up, the horror elements ramping up in the second half, I really did enjoy that. I really like the ways that authors can use inspiration and retellings and things like that very creatively. And I think the way that the deaths and the characters in here tie to fairy tales that are familiar to the reader potentially is really well done. That's an element I really like in a book. So that worked well for me. I do wish this felt a little more finished in and of itself. It does kind of come to a climax and a conclusion. We get a reveal, which I didn't entirely expect, which was nice, but it does leave the bulk of the mystery for the sequel. So it is a sequel I would like to pick up. I gather that that one kind of continues on with some of the things that I liked in here coming up again. So with that, I do want to pick that up. It's not going to happen today, I don't think, but if I can squeeze it into a prompt somewhere as I'm playing my readathons for September, I would like to be able to kind of start and finish this series off very quickly without making it into something that I think if I wait too long, I will have forgotten too much about who's who in here, because that is something that there's a lot of kind of different characters, and my brain, possibly because of the headache too, was at times having to remind myself which character was which. But the plot was really interesting. The mystery elements I enjoyed. Once those got going, I think it had its good gory moments. And all told, I did have a good time with this one. I think it's landing at a 3.5, I think is where I'm at with this one. And then because I didn't want to get in front of a camera, I did just go ahead and continue on reading. So I have made it to halfway, or a little bit past halfway, in my next book, and that is The Force Demands Its Due. This is a YA horror. We are following a young man named Douglas. He was accused of a pretty horrific crime that he didn't do and was in a lot of trouble over this. This academy, which actually reminds me in a lot of ways of the one in the Grimrose Girls, reached out to him and his mother, and they offered him excellent legal help to get him out of his trouble and asked him to come to the school. And they gave his mom a job as a nurse at the school. And they couldn't really say no, but honestly, Douglas kind of resents them and the privileged people he's going to school with. He's getting in a lot of trouble. He's kind of holding a resentment because he feels like he's there just because he is Black and because he is openly gay, and they are trying to improve their numbers and their diversity representation in that way. And he knows that he needs to be there. They helped him out of this difficult situation, and his mother is telling him he needs to toe the line. The people at the school are telling him the same thing, but there's something about the school that is not working for him. And the school is surrounded by these woods, and the students are told not to go into the woods. The students talk about how time works differently there, and there's just these dangers in this woods. And the problem is he hears the woods talking to him, and there seems to be something really creepy going on here. This does work, without getting into spoilers, this does work for my haunting theme better a bit than Grimrose Girls, although there were a few things in that one that came up that worked. This one definitely has the haunting atmosphere down, and the bodies start turning up as well. And this is something that really freaks our main character out for a good reason. But it turns out no one at the school remembers these people after they have died. In the moment, they react. But then as soon as the body's gone, their memories of this person ever having existed also goes away. And as we get to the middle of the book, we are learning more and more about this. We don't know why our main character is the one person who does remember what happened. And even his mother doesn't, the one who was the nurse treating these kids as they're brought in. And there's a really intriguing mystery element to that. There's some creepy settings and twists and turns that I didn't expect. So far I'm having a good time with this one. Definitely will be finishing this up today. Depending on how the day goes, this might actually wind up being our last book. I really wanted to get to a couple more, but honestly, between the headache and the live show and just being busy, I think it might be my last. We will see. But in any case, I am eager to keep reading this one, and we'll check back in with you later on once I finished. I am back because I have finished my book, and I have decided this is going to be my final book for this particular vlog. It's been 40-ish hours. That's like a normal readathon challenge length, right? I am about to go and do the live show for Vampire Academy, and by the time that's over, by the time I have lunch, it's going to be late in the afternoon, I think, and then I just kind of want to have a chill night. I think that's the goal, because starting tomorrow, it is readathon month. I've got 2 readathons I'm planning to go hard for, and so I think having a chill afternoon today sounds like a good plan, especially since I still have a lingering headache that's kind of been plaguing me all weekend and is getting annoying. So I think I'll take a chill evening and go strong come tomorrow. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about the fact that I did finish The Forest Demands Its Due. And overall, I did enjoy this one. I think it's not necessarily one that's going to stick in my brain a whole heck of a lot, but I did particularly like the forest setting, the idea of the voice coming out of that, what we learn about that voice, what we learn about Douglas and his connection to the forest, and I think all of that was done well. There were parts in the middle where we really kind of got away from the forest that lost my attention a little bit here and there. I didn't like the school setting as much as I did the actual forest and the atmospheric nature of it. The kind of grown-ups in charge of the school definitely rubbed me the wrong way, as I think they're meant to, but it felt very much like a position of power where they're grooming these kids to do what needs doing to deal with the forest, and saying things and acting differently. I don't know. Don't want to go into too much detail on that because that would get into spoiler region. The romance in here didn't quite hit for me, just in the sense that it develops very quickly, and it very quickly becomes you are the most important over other people who have been in their lives for longer, who maybe should have more consideration. There's a we must deal with what's in the forest at all costs, but there's an exception for the fact that I love you. I don't know. That to me didn't quite get built out as much. It is YA romance in a YA horror, so I don't expect a whole lot of depth, but it just didn't quite hit for me in that regard. But in the end, I think this one turned out well. I think it's landing at a 3.5 for me. It's not one that I'm going to say is a brand new favorite. Everyone must read it, but it also was a good, entertaining time, and I'm glad to be finishing off this vlog in a positive way. So of my initial stack, I wound up finishing 4 of them, which is not bad in 40 hours to actually have finished these off. I think Sorrowland for sure was my favorite out of this set, but I think both Grim Rose Girls and The Forest Demands Its Due were both good as well. I think Tell Me I'm Worthless is an author I enjoyed, but not the content I was looking for to kick things off. The 2 books I had picked up that I did not get to that I at some point would still like to get to, I had Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. This is one that I think I had picked up and had found it on a list of books featuring someone who's asexual. I could be wrong about that. And She is a Haunting by Trang Thuan Tran. Sorry if I am butchering that. And I believe this one came off of a list that was horror featuring a bisexual character. Again, I might have things a little bit wrong. I was just going off of random lists I found online for the most part. So let me know in the comments below, have you read either of those? And would you recommend them or not? Let me know. Let me know also if you have any recommendations in general for queer horror, or even beyond that. I really struggled to find haunted house stories in particular that that I had not read that I was interested in reading. So let me know if you have any haunted house stories for me. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, I think a ghost emoji would make a lot of sense to let me know you are here. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my themed reading challenges, more of my book thoughts, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.